Hey all you weekend warriors and warriors out there, today I'm going to show you how to install the gutters on this 12x14 Yardistry gazebo so you can enjoy the outdoors, a beautiful view, and deal with the rain. You're going to want to do this if you live in a rainy place like I do in the Pacific Northwest, or if the rain that comes off of your gazebo is going to come really close to the house. You're going to want to divert that away from the house. So let me show you how to do that. I'm going to show you the tools that you need. Tools, I mean safety gear obviously, gloves and protective glasses. You're going to need some gutter sealant with a caulk gun. You're going to need a hole saw, or you're going to need to be able to cut a hole in the gutters. So you have this kind of adapter, it's called a mandrel, and then I used a 2-inch hole saw. You're going to want some tin snips. These have little parts on them that say that they're ready for going on the, going off to the right or going off to the left. So if you're cutting a hole and you want to cut a hole like this, you're going to want the left ones. I'll show you some tips about how to use that properly later. This is an angle grinder with a cutoff wheel. So this is a thin wheel, and you're going to want to use, you can use lots of different things to cut the gutters, but hacksaw or a chop saw that has a metal cutting blade. But this is helpful and useful and somewhat fast and cheap, at least. The other thing is you're going to want a rivet gun or some way of attaching the gutter pieces together. So this is called a rivet gun. This one's from Harbor Freight. It's nice because the rivets, after they're done, go into this little part, and then you're going to want rivets that are, an 1/8 of an inch wide or so, and then the grip or the length of the rivet part to be 1/4 inch. You're going to want a jigsaw. At least I cut a hole in the deck so that I could divert the downspout away and under the deck, so I used a jigsaw to do that. I'll show you how to, you're going to need some 2x3s, 2 of them, but I'll show you that later. And then for, you'll need to be able to cut holes in the gutters, so you're going to need, a drill. And ideally something that's not black oxide. You want titanium or carbide. These are some other tools that you'll need just for installing the whole Yardistry gazebo, but if you're just doing gutters today, you don't need these. But you'll need some, some way of driving screws, which you could use the drill for that. And then you're going to need either just using ratchets, but it's so slow. You have to do so many metal screws with nut heads, so you're going to need to use sockets for that, and it's just so much faster when you can use a socket adapter and the socket itself to go fast. And that's what these are, little socket adapters. You can get them long or short or whatever. So that's the tools list, and I'll do a walk around and show you how it's done. Okay, so these are 4-inch K-style gutters. That means they're 4 inches wide, and then you can buy them from the Home Store, Home Depot or something in brown. And the problem is that they come in 10-foot lengths. They're not going to match exactly what you have here, so you need to be able to connect them. So those connection points, you just cut the length that you need and measure the length that you need, and then in this case, I'll show you a video of how to do this properly, but the idea is that they sit into one another, and the part where the water's flowing, the highest corner, flows this direction, so that means that this one is on the inside of this one, and then you rivet here, and maybe you have one on the bottom, and then the water just flows to here. And notice we also get 4 outside miter pieces, and we do the same sort of overlap there. One thing that's unfortunate is that at least as you buy these miter pieces, outside miter pieces, they, you know, if the water's flowing this direction, unfortunately this one can't be on the inside of this one. This is just too wide, so it just doesn't fit in there. So there's a little bit of place where water could make its way out here. But, you know, as long as you have good sealant and good connection here, it's not gonna leak, and it's not been leaking at all. But yeah, you want to connect these overlapping parts with rivets. And as I said, you know, the water is flowing down this direction to the drop outlet, which we're going to cut a hole and make a spot for. And so this is the lowest point. Now, where are these gutters mounted to? Notice that there's these kind of big bracing pieces that actually are bolted together right in the middle here. We're not mounting them to this. We're mounting them to this wood piece that's on the outside of that. Okay? Now, there's not that much room, and you need enough drop so that the water flows this direction. And so what I started as the distance between the wood and the bottom of the gutter on this side was about 1 1/4. That's as far as up as I could get it. And then you're going to want at least 1/4 inch for every 10 feet. Well, this is 12 feet, and that's 14 feet. So you need, you know, definitely more than 1/4 inch drop to here. So I ended up doing almost 3/4 of an inch drop to the distance between the wood and here. And then I ended up, the camera's not showing well because of the light, and here it, you know, another 3/4 of an inch or so here. So that way the drop was just good enough. So I started out with a 1 1/4 from the bottom over there, and I ended up at like, or you know, over like a little over 2.5 on this side, and it's just enough. Now, so yeah, the total number of pieces that you're going to need are 6 pieces of gutter, 4 outside miters pieces. You're going to need a couple of elbows. Those are elbow pieces here, right? And then this is the drop itself. There's a 2 by 3 inch drop. And then you're going to need some kind of drop outlet. You can buy kits that make it just easier, but I find the drop outlets that you, let's see, right. This is just a 2 by 3 inch drop outlet that we put rivets in, that I put rivets in there, 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 and there. So all you really need to do is cut a hole and then put sealant around this and then rivet it in place in a few places. And then that drop outlet comes down and you overlap the elbow piece onto the drop outlet and maybe put a screw in here or something, or a rivet right here to hold it so it doesn't come down. One other thing that was annoying is that the distance between this wood piece and where I need to mount the you know, mount the drop to is the angle of these makes that so that the run is too far. So I had to actually bend these in place, and that's where the 2 by 3s end up helping. Then I use a strap to hold it to there, and I'll show you how to bend these. You basically, you just put 2 2 by 3s into one of these and bend it out, and I'll kind of give you a demonstration of that. I also needed to, at least for my deck, I wanted to get this down and away from underneath the deck. So I cut a hole with a jigsaw. I mean, I started the hole with a, you know, with a hole saw, and then you can finish the rest with the jigsaw. So that just comes out, and it actually doesn't move at all down here, so you don't even need a strap down here. You just need a strap right here. Okay. So this is what I was talking about with those elbow pieces. You're going to want to have 2 2x3s that are kind of long enough. Now on this side where it's bigger, you know, you may be able to fit a 2x4 in there. But either way, just get something that fills most of it in here. You know, kind of step on it on one side and then push down with the other side, and it'll bend it into place. Just don't do it too hard. Do it very gradually, and then it won't bend this thing out of shape. And then it'll bend it so this angle is less of an angle, so that the run is less, in order to mount against the side of the gazebo. Okay. Another thing I wanted to show you was a tip about how to use these. One thing is that if you're close to if you fully, like if you're doing scissors and you cut to the end on the scissors, right, to the point, right, you don't want to cut to this point. The best control occurs closer to the anyways closer to the to this nut here, so you get more control there, and so that way you can turn more effectively. If you are not finishing you never want to fully extend. You want to always just do little cuts as you're doing the cut, so that way you can do a lot of control and turn very effectively. Okay. Another thing you're going to want to do, we're under the deck right now, and the idea is that any water you want to divert and control and get it away from the house and away from any kind of footings like this. In this case, my decks are just on piers, and this was poorly done, but the idea, these are not particularly stable, and they are not, it's not as bad in the Pacific Northwest because it doesn't freeze as much. But the idea is you don't want any water, ideally barely any water getting around these guys. You don't want to upset the soil around it. So you want to divert and spread out that water away from any footings. So that's why you should get yourself something like this, or, you know, bury it and divert it away. So that's what I did at my place, but you know, you design it as you like or as your circumstances require. Also, I don't think I said it clearly before, but the idea is that you're going to want to overlap these. Wherever there's an overlap, you're going to want ample sealant in that place, all around and up to near the top. Okay, so that sealant is there to keep the water from flowing back, as well as the rivets are there to make sure that nothing shifts around and upsets the sealant. The other thing you want to do, which I didn't list in the initial thing, was you want some touch-up spray paint to make sure that these rivets don't rust. So, and that just so it looks a little nicer. I mean, I didn't do a perfect job, but from far away this looks like a very clean setup. I personally don't like rivets, or don't like metal screws, because, you know, self-tapping screws, because I can poke myself when I'm working in the gutters or cleaning them out or something, so I like rivets a lot better. I also forgot to mention that the brackets that you should use, in the past people use these things called spikes and ferrules, and they're like big nails that just go directly into there. But nails are just, well, nails are just terrible. They don't stay in, they pop out, and it's just annoying. So I got these brackets. These are for 4-inch brackets. Some of the times they look a little bit different. For the 5-inch ones, they look a little bit different than this. But the idea is that they, you know, these hold the make it a stable gutter, so that if you pull down, it doesn't move very much and can handle a little bit of snow load. The other thing is that this is a screw, right? And so this is a much more effective connection, and it won't back out. And so as long as you just get enough meat into the wood back there, you'll be fine. The other thing to keep in mind is this angle. Okay, you want to make sure that, I mean, we don't live in a snowy area, but if you do, it's really important that you have the the gutter, if the snow's coming off, you don't want the snow's weight, or most of the snow's weight, to sit on this. You want this to be slightly lower or more than the angle would allow as you come off. Okay, so that's why you can't start off too high at your highest point, otherwise you could have some snow issues. So that's important to keep in mind. Hey, so that's it on the gutters, all the tips I have. For the overall structure, one thing to note is that, you know, this is not a super easy install. It takes a lot of time, and you should be at least handy. You should know what nuts and bolts are. You should be able to handle them fine, and, you know, screws and everything. And so the other thing is that you can do this install all by yourself up until putting the roof on. You need 3 people at least, because there are 4 corners sections. They're quite heavy as is, and they need to be kind of be pushed onto the top as somebody's holding it. And really, I mean, you just need 3 at the very least. 3 or 4 is fine. The other part that's kind of hard to do by yourself is once you've got these kind of lateral pieces put together, they're quite heavy. So, you know, how do you bolt together at the same time as holding up the other side to be exactly level? I did that with, you know, using a ladder to hold up one side and then, you know, bolted in place, and did this all by yourself. But it's really nice to have 2 people while you're assembling. But overall, you're going to need, for about, you know, maybe less than an hour, you're going to need 3 or 4 people. The other interesting thing is that, you know, pay attention a lot to the directions when you're putting these guys together. For one of the lateral pieces, which is longer, there's a piece of metal that goes in between here to give it more structure, whereas the other one does not have that. Okay, and then, you know, another tip is that this has to be level. Okay, you know, you're not going to just set this on some dirt. And as it is, my deck kind of curves this way a little bit, and so it, you know, I had to muscle it quite a bit, and it's fairly level, but it was still a pretty good challenge. So if you've got a, you know, a concrete patio that looks good, it's perfectly easy and fine to do this. But if it's less than desirable, it's going to be super hard. Okay, and then another thing to note is that the kind of mill glaze or whatever that's on here, this is cedar, and it smells really nice when it comes. It looks beautiful. It's just not sealed very well. You can see at the bottom, you know, we live in a humid place, but you know, this will start to gray because of UV. So if you live in, you know, sunny place or it's not being protected, it will gray. And then the other thing is, if you live in a humid place, it'll do this, and it's much easier to seal it while, you know, it's in the box, and it's easy to seal each piece. But, you know, you're going to want to put, ideally, to preserve this nice look, you're going to want to put a clear sealant on it, and you're going to want to replace that every 1 to 2 years. But the cool thing about sealers, clear sealers, is that they don't need to be like sanded off, and then you just put on new sealer every year or every 2 years, and it's perfectly fine. I did not do that because I had time constraints. But you notice that, you know, I'm getting some mildew and mold, and I think that's mold actually. I'm not sure. But, you know, I'm going to have to wash this off and then put a new clear sealant layer on. I think that's it for the tips that I had, but it's clear this is beautiful. It protects, I mean, it's so nice to have a gazebo or some kind of protection from the sun in the summer, and then like in the Pacific Northwest, you definitely need the protection from the rain when you want to come out here and read, or come out here and just sit on your laptop and have a good time. So thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something, and I'll see you next time.